Wunderparlement.
Wunderparlement.
Yes, do you have my voice?
Wunderparlament.
Apprendre à faire de la radio.
Il presidente.
Ucz się radia.
Aprende a hacer radio.
Leer radio maken.
Chaque mois au Parlement européen à Strasbourg.
En el Parlamento Europeo de Estrasburgo.
W Parlamencie Europejskim w Strasburgu. Czekamy na Ciebie.
In Straatsburg.
Toi aussi, tu peux venir.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to this new Louis Armand Broadcast Company radio show.
We are a group of students of the lycée Louis Armand.
And today we are in the European Parliament.
Oh, let's introduce what we'll talk about in your show today.
First, we will talk about borders thanks to Salome, Kenny, Leah and Florence, who had an interview with Amandine Bach of the Left Group.
Then, in a second part, we will be listening to the interview of Lauren Kramer, who talked about the spyware Pegasus scandal to Allen, Purity, Lina and Matthias.
Then we will listen to the interview of Gwendoline Delbos-Corfield about the Hero project. It was with Matteo, Loan, Juliet and Isor.
And in the end, we were lucky to have a Vox Pop done by Yen and Adrian with few voice of the Parliament.
And now, let's start the radio show with Mathilde, Kenny and Florence. To the first subject of today.
Hello, Kenny and Florent.
Hi. Hello.
So, how is it today in the Parliament? How do you feel about today?
So it was our first time in the European Parliament, and actually it was a great discovery, in my opinion. We were able to see a lot of different places in the European Parliament, such as the hemicycle, I think it was, yeah. We were also able to meet MEPs and talk to them and actually interview them as well.
Wow, cool. What did you think of your day in the Parliament?
The place was very beautiful. All the place in the European Parliament was very beautiful.
Nice. And what was the subject you worked on today?
So we worked on, it was borders and frontiers. Yeah, it was border and frontiers. And so we talked about the subject with an MEP from the left political group. Mm-hmm. And so we asked her some questions about borders and frontier. And we tried to understand her opinion about the subject and her political group as well. Opinion.
And what is her name?
I think it was Amandine Bach.
Yeah.
Bach.
Yeah.
Let's listen to that.
Well, hello. To begin with, could you please introduce yourself as well as your political group, the Left, please?
Okay, so my name is Amandine Bach. I'm a political advisor with the Left Group in the European Parliament. The Left Group is, at the moment, unfortunately, the smallest group in the European Parliament. And we fight for left values, which means social justice, fundamental rights for everybody. I would say, this as the main element.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Where does your political group stand about borders and frontiers?
Okay, I think on this issue we are the most progressive group in the European Parliament. It is a very increasingly difficult because we stand for the rights of people on the move, independently of their status. So we advocate for regularization of undocumented migrants who've been living for a long time in the different EU member states as the first solution, and to provide rights to all seeking asylum as well, and to provide safe and legal avenues. And we are fully against the increasingly fortress Europe that invests tons of billions of euros on border technologies and that benefits corporate companies.
What are the positive effects of immigration?
There are many, but we only talk about the negative and about far-right theories like the Great Replacements, which we fully denounce each time. But I think for us it's a question of rights. So we are often, we don't use, for example, the liberals use a lot the fact that we need immigration to replace because we have low birth rates in Europe, or we need economic workforce. As Left, in our values, we just believe in an equal and inclusive society. So we refuse to use this argumentation, even if it's an easy one. Other groups use it, the Greens, the Social Democrats and the Liberals. But for us it's about building the type of society we want to live in, where we don't believe in borders, and we think everybody should be able to move freely, to get a visa, and not only some privileged ones to be able to travel freely in the world.
How can we further limit the illegal passage of exile?
How we can provide safe passage more? Okay, it's for people seeking asylum. Okay. Yeah, for us, one of the key issues that we never believed we would be facing in Europe, because if you look at European history, Europe was built supposedly for peace, and also because during World War II, for example, a lot of people trying to flee Europe were blocked. You had boats being sent back from Cuba to Europe, people being killed after that. And we thought we had learned from history, but at the moment, when you look at, you have pushbacks at basically every internal and external border in the European Union. You have every person seeking international protection in the European Union is almost beaten up every day with strong violence. And there is a right, it comes from the Geneva Convention, and this right should be respected. And there should be, so any person that would arrive irregularly to crossing an EU border has to be provided with the opportunity to ask for asylum, and people who are outside should be provided resettlement opportunities, and there are not enough. For example, at the moment, we have a war that nobody talks about in Sudan that just broke out, and you have many people that are just abandoned there and have no way to escape the country, including with embassies who have their passports in hand and refuse to give it back to them.
To investigate further in this problematic, can you explain to us how are our frontiers protected?
The European Union has invested so much billions of euros to protect borders, and you have the right and the far right saying, we are not protecting the borders, but actually it's just the opposite. So you have there is a map of all the walls across Europe that we never thought would be built again based on history. But then you have also, it's not only the walls, it's also all the technologies, the border technologies. So if you don't have a wall, you still have sensors. So this billion of euro, I mean, this basically makes it currently almost impossible for persons to cross border. And then the other tool that is being used, if people by chance would manage still to make it, is the illegal pushbacks that are being carried out every day, where people basically already on EU's territory, like the Greek islands, would be put on a boat and returned back to Turkey in full illegality, and the European Commission is doing nothing against this. So at the moment, I mean, the question is rather, indeed, how can you reach the EU safely, which has become impossible.
What are the reasons for immigration? Why do citizens decide to immigrate?
That's, I think it's just, we did a visit recently in Senegal, and it's very interesting to hear, to go to third countries, and they say migration has been part of history. And it will remain part of history. People move, and for a multiplicity of reasons. The same reason, for example, I moved to Brussels. I mean, you had a multiplicity of reasons. The issue is that we always look at what are the causes for people from the south to come to the north, and while and they are called migrants, while the other ones are called expats. So there are just this multiplicity of reasons for migration, and then you have the other issue, which is when you face persecution and you need to flee, as I was talking about the war in Sudan, suddenly you have to flee and there is just no other option. You don't prepare, you just need to save your life and the life of your family. But for migration, there is just a multiplicity of reasons, and that's part of who we are as human beings.
Does welcoming refugees increase the risk of criminality?
Yeah, that's the discourse of the far right. It doesn't. The statistics show it, and it's just an argument, a debate we really oppose and we refuse to engage, but it has been used in the Swedish recent elections as one of the main arguments, but it just doesn't.
To finish, what do you think about the welcoming of Ukrainian refugees in France compared with others?
I think when the war broke out in Ukraine, we didn't expect. We welcomed the fact that suddenly, for once, the European Commission and member states took the decision to give a status to Ukrainians. This was the first time in history that they took this decision. We welcome it, but at the same time, from day one, we said, but what about the others? And because we know that in 2015, when you had Syrians in the Greek islands, they could have taken, there was exactly the same context, and they should have provided protection to them, but they chose not to for political reasons. And that's an issue. This differentiated status, it also created a lot of tensions within the refugee community, with some not understanding, for example, Afghans, that was really at the same moment. You had Afghans being locked up on the Greek islands, that they are not able to return to Turkey or to Afghanistan, left without any status. And at the same time, you had Ukrainians being just welcomed. And then it hasn't been easy for Ukrainians because they had the status issue solved, but they needed to find housing. And private housing, is a short-term solution, but not a long-term, and they needed to find job. But it has been I was in Lithuania also 1 week after the war broke out, and in Lithuania and Latvia at the Belarus border, and we visited camps where a lot of African asylum seekers were detained, families, and they could not understand. They say, why have we been locked up in this camp for 8 months with our children, while Ukrainians are just being welcomed? And they started riots. It created so much tension and we couldn't explain to them, except that you're black, they're white, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It was emerging back from the left group.
Now we welcome Purity and Alan in the studio.
Hello, Purity and Alan.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, and you?
I'm fine.
Oh, I'm fine too, yeah.
So how was your first day in the European Parliament?
Today was unique. Like, I already went to the Parliament, nevertheless, as a visitor, and today, thanks to Radio Quetch, we had a press pass, and thanks to that, we had access to a room which are hidden from the public, so it was really cool.
And for you?
It was incredible, but it's beautiful, but everything goes too fast and you can't go at your own pace.
That's true. And what did you work on today?
We talked about cybersecurity and Pegasus virus that infected thousands of phones of politicians and journalists that got information about everything on their phone and could even read information on the screens.
Wow, and who was that person you talked to?
We talked to Lawrence Creamer.
Cool. Let's listen to that then.
Hello, mister. So you can introduce yourself and present in a few words the Pegasus hacking and when was this?
Yes, okay. My name is Lawrence Kramer. I work for the left group in the European Parliament as a policy advisor. Most of my time I spent with working on data protection, police cooperation questions. But when the Pegasus scandal broke, at some point, eventually, the European Parliament decided to establish an inquiry committee on the matter. That was about a year ago, last year in March, when it was properly established, and from then till now we worked on the inquiry. The actual Pegasus scandal, in the way that it broke in Europe, was a bit before. That was around October, November, but already it started a bit already in the summer of 21. And yeah, what happened? So there is this very aggressive kind of spyware. It's called Pegasus, but I say that in the beginning now. There is more types of spyware that are very similar. It's just this one product, this one brand that became a bit the poster boy, and that were the words of the CEO of the Israeli company that was producing the thing. So there are more than just Pegasus, there are many, but there is this very aggressive new kind of spyware that has one special feature, because it is zero click, zero interaction. So it's not like you receive on your link on your phone a link that you have to click on some fraudulent link, but you don't need to do anything. It does not require any interaction from your side, and it is very hard to find any traces afterwards. So that's what makes it so different from what we have seen before in the past 10 years. Most of the European states have introduced some sort of government hacking framework where they were allowed to plant some kind of Trojan horses on your phone, but it always required some user interaction. So they had to trick you into clicking on a link or something. This is different here. And once installed, it allows really to switch on the microphone, switch on the camera, read all the files on the device, and something that is very important, it can also read everything that is on your screen. So if you use some encrypted messenger, like probably you're all using WhatsApp or something, and that is encrypted, then this will not protect you against that, because the attacker can read what is on your screen. So it manages to circumvent any encryption of the phone. And the real scandal about this, I mean, I find it enough of a scandal that this software exists and is traded and governments buy it. But one of the biggest problems really is that it then became clear that in Poland they had used it against the opposition at the beginning of the election campaign. In Hungary they had used it on journalists that were reporting critically of the government. In a way, you have seen the same in Greece, where they have planted it on telephones of the opposition leaders in the run-up to coalition talks or talks on who will be running with who in the election. Also on journalists, in this case investigative journalists that had been investigating corruption. And then there is also the case of Spain, where all of the victims were mainly involved in the Catalan separatist movement. And then you have a certain group of other people that had been infected. Those were mainly journalists and activists that are in one way or the other involved in Northern African political matters, be it Sahrawi, Moroccan, Algerian, and some of these were based in France, some in Spain, some in Belgium. But yeah, that is where those people are based and where they're operating. And also then the few cases of European governments like the one of Spain and France.
Thank you for this answer. Like you said, the parliament was hacked by the virus Pegasus in 2016, but do you know by who and how they managed to do this?
I don't know to what extent the European Parliament really was infiltrated. They have found the traces on the phones of some MEPs, mainly a Greek one. But to answer the question about who and why, the problem is it is extremely hard to find out who did it. It's when we were talking to the technological experts, they were actually explaining to us that the forensic analysis that they are doing on the phones does not actually reveal who did it. So in a technical way, it's impossible to actually prove who did it. In the case, there is only ever circumstantial evidence. You have some idea what is plausible, who could have done it. That's the same as with the governments of Morocco, of Spain and France, where there is a certain number of indicators that suggest that it was the Moroccan government that has been doing it, but there is no proof whatsoever. The only real proofs we know of are in Poland and in Hungary, where in one way or the other the government admitted that they did it. And in Spain it was the Secret Service who admitted it. So either you get a stamp and a letter from the government that proves it's the case. You only ever have circumstantial evidence. So you can make a rhyme out of it, but that's it.
Do you know how they discovered that their servers was hacked in the European Parliament?
There is a misconception here. Pegasus and a similar spyware cannot affect servers. It is specifically made to target smartphones. There exist some versions that attack iPhones and some that attack Android phones. But nothing of this sort works on the servers itself. Yes, so that's why I can't say about this. But just to make that point, that's what makes it so problematic, because it does not really target an institution, but it targets a person. And you know, if your telephone is infiltrated and infected with this software, maybe you're an activist and it knows what your activism is about and what you are doing. But it will also record the phone calls you have with your mother, your wife, your children, all of this, or your lawyer. So that's what makes it so super problematic, because somebody who would infiltrate the European Parliament servers, they would get some employment data. That is annoying, but it is a different kind of thing. And it would get all the documents that we send around here. Again, that would be a bit annoying, but it would not be so personally disturbing and so breaching your intimate sphere.
What did the Parliament did to deal with the spyware, and what did the Parliament do to prevent further hacking?
Yes, so as I said, the Parliament established the inquiry committee, and that's mainly what was done. So in the course of this 1 year of the inquiry committee, we had many hearings, I think 25 or so hearings with various experts, a lot of technical experts in fact, to explain to us the situation. We went to various places. We went to Israel, to Poland, to Hungary, to Greece, to Spain, to go to the places to talk to the victims, to the secret services, to the government agencies, and all of this. So this was the kind of work we did. This is what we did in order to find out what is going on. And it's all we could do, because of course we don't have the power to knock on the door of the French Secret Service and say, can we come in and look at your computers? That will not work. So that's all we did. I think that's also a bit of the problem, because we encountered a wall of silence everywhere. The only ones that really wanted to speak to us were victims that had been hacked, or it was journalists that had helped to uncover the whole story in the first place. So, and then with the state institutions, it was really, we met a wall of secrecy and silence. They really did not want to disclose anything. They were trying to keep it as secret as they could, even things that had been public already. And so we encountered a lot of resistance there, and it was very hard to find out things. What is the Parliament doing to prevent this? Yes, this will sound a bit underwhelming, because we don't have the kind of powers to really ban anything. But so the report that has been voted yesterday in the evening, and that will be properly voted in the plenary in June here in Strasbourg, this proposes a few things, and it first and foremost, for the moment, it does not say it asks for a moratorium, but in a way it still asks for a moratorium, and it says the EU member states should stop using any of this invasive spyware until the end of the year, and until they can prove that they actually do it in a proper legal framework with real safeguards and the possibility, if you have been hacked, to go and complain, for instance, and to go to court over this, and to contest it. Because, as I said, you can always say it's important for some national security, but all the people that have been hacked have been journalists and opposition politicians, and it's really not. These were not terrorists in no way. But coming back to the point, this is what we're asking. It's also asking the Commission to, at some point, look at maybe presenting a legislative proposal in order to create again a legal framework, put conditions on the use of such spyware. And then there is the other thing. A lot of the spyware manufacturers are in fact companies from Israel. And so there is the demand that the whole regime we have on export licenses on dual-use products, the things that are not a weapon but that you can use in a similar way. You have this from arms trade. This is where you know these kind of things from. That these kind of spyware fall under this dual use, and so that there is export restrictions, that there is checks on imports. These kind of measures, so that really not every product can be bought and sold by the governments. I think this is really the main demands that are there. Would I want more? Yes. Is it plausible that the EU can really do more? I'm not so sure. This is something that is still very much in control of the governments, of the member states, and to a certain extent they will do what they like. Since we're here in France, there is also a thing. France, for instance, has never bought Pegasus. We don't know what they are using, but they're using something that they programmed themselves. So you see how the export and import restrictions will not really get a grip on that. So you see there is many layers of complexity.
Do you have any other questions? No? Did you want to add something?
Yes, maybe on that last point, because I personally feel that the outcome is not very satisfying, because it leaves us in a situation where we know that there exists a software that can infect your phone. You have almost no means of knowing that it has done so. Only when you get lucky will you find out who did it. And even though the governments say, yes, this is to protect the state, this is to protect national security, what we are seeing is it targets, again, journalists that have been investigative journalists that have been investigating corruption. The one journalist from Greece was one of the journalists that had been involved in the Pandora Papers, that showed a lot of funds that politicians from Europe were having in the Bahamas. So you see, they are inconvenient for the government. They're not terrorists. In Poland, the party leader that has been hacked before the elections, that was not some crazy party. That is the party that is here in the conservative political group. They're very far away from being terrorists. So, and I personally only know of one case in the whole affair where it has, not for a terrorist, but where it has been used to catch at least a criminal. One case. We have a high number of cases where it's been politicians, journalists, and I know of one case where it has not been a terrorist, but a murderer in a very bad case. A very evil person, for sure. So we know of one case where it was used, at least in a way they say it has to be used. And there is a huge gap in between, and it creates some insecurity. And it's really dangerous.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We are Lawrence Creamer on the subject of the spyware Pegasus.
And now, we welcome Juliette and Matteo in the studio.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Juliette and Matteo. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm fine as well. So, how was your day in the Parliament today?
To my mind, it was an incredible day. So I never think going to the European Parliament, and it was amazing. So it looked like another world. So you don't know, but you discover many things, and you are surprised, and yeah. So I love this journey.
Would you like to come again?
Yeah, really.
As a journalist?
Yeah.
And yours? How was your day?
For me, the day is very beautiful because, like she said, Juliette, when we enter in the parliament, and you have the impression we are in a new world, like professional world, and with a lot of people who are important for the Europe, who represent the peace, and I really like to go at Hemicycle because we see a lot of people who come to the different countries and they speak in order to defend their opinion and work together. And it was what I like, and it's my first time at European Parliament, and I liked to interview Gwendoline Delbos-Corfield because she have a good opinion, and I really liked to interview and ask her some question.
Would you like to come again too?
Yeah.
As a journalist as well?
Yeah.
And what did you speak about with that Gwendoline Delbos-Corfield?
With Gwendoline, we talk about his program since she's in the Green. And we talk about ecology and more precisely also his value, her value, sorry, and what she defends, and the fact that it's not already just one problem, it's some different problem where we do in it's different problem and we do take different way in order to do a more beautiful word.
It seems interesting.
Yeah.
We will listen to that now.
Hello, I am Isa Wininger, and my first question is could you introduce yourself and your group?
Okay, so I'm Gwendoline Delbos-Corfield. I'm a French MEP. There is 79 French MEP in this parliament, and I'm from the Green Group. I was a local councillor in Grenoble, regional councillor in Région Rhône-Alpes before they changed regions, and I was a member of the European Green Party for a long time, and now I'm an MEP here, and I work on civil rights, liberties, rule of law issues mostly, gender questions, women's rights, some constitutional questions also. I work a lot on constitutional aspects. That's it. And the Green Group here is the fourth group in size. It has a big importance in Parliament because everything is considered through proportionality, so that's it has an importance on how much time we have to speak in plenary, how many reports we get, and all this. So with the fourth group, the three first groups are the right wing, is the right wing group, Socialist group, SND, Renew group, Liberals, and then us.
Hello, I'm Jafar Loan, and my question is what's the aim of Europe?
What is the aim of Europe? Wow. Okay, well, as you probably know, Europe first was a peace, it was an economical project, but it was thought as a peace project. I am what is called a federalist, so my reference are people that were Italian prisoners during the war, that on one island, Vantenene, decided that after this war, the war against the Nazi, and after, in fact, centuries of wars, and between Germany and French specifically, but including a lot of European countries, it was time for a project where the nations would go together in one common project. It has been this common project since then. It is now, of course, not only that, it's also a market, a common market, it's a common money, it's a number of rules that we apply, all of us in all countries, member countries of European Union, for all of our consuming products. So we have rules about our products. It's also, of course, money that can help in certain regions rules that can help agriculture. It's, yes, environmental big rules, but it is still also, that's my domain, but I also really think it's one of the big aim of Europe is to defend a number of values. Values of freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom to be who you want to be, where you want to be, when you want to be. So this is also EU. We are more and more in EU defending fundamental rights, which are in a big text called the Charter of Fundamental Rights, that I like very much. I think it's a very important text that should be learned in French schools, like in all EU schools. So yeah, I mean, the aim at the beginning was to work together peacefully. It then became mostly the aim of having a common economy and a common money. But nowadays, it's also the aims are much bigger because now they are to challenge a number of big issues of these times, climate issues specifically, but also freedom and with the war coming back in Ukraine, well, peace is also again on the table because it still is a big issue.
Hello, my name is Mathieu Gideman, and what's your hope for Europe?
Well, my hope for Europe is for it not to forget these values and not to let them go. We are in a moment where a number of member states are having far-right governments, and they are no more threatening to go out of EU, like UK, for example, did. The UK said we want to go out of EU. It wasn't a very good experience, and it has shown all the others that it's not the good way to go. So nowadays, far-rights specifically are not speaking anymore of getting out of EU. They are speaking of staying in EU only for the common rules on market and the common rules on economy and the money and the Eurozone, but not taking the substance of EU, the values of EU. And this is my big fear today. I am very worried that we're going more and more in that way, where EU member states are using EU, not saying that they want to go out of it, but not fighting for the values that are there, and that means that some EU citizens are in fact not as equal as the others, because you don't live exactly the same today in Hungary or in Poland if you're a woman, an LGBTI person, if you're a minority person in a number of countries than you would in the Netherlands or in the Nordic countries. So it means that today we are having not the same freedoms for all EU citizens. So my hope is that we go on fighting for that and we come back to a situation and we reinforce a situation where EU citizens are experiencing the same freedom, the same civil liberties, the same rights everywhere in EU.
My name is Juliette Bouzavia, and how did you come to politics?
So I was. So first, I think it's important to say that I always had a political look to things, even if when I was young. My parents were not at all members of political parties, but they explained the world through political lenses. So I always had that in mind. I then was a feminist quite young because my mum was a feminist. So. I was born on the 8th of March, which is which for my mum was quite a thing, and I've got my father and mother's name and all this. So I started as this. I was engaged in a lot of civil society organization when I was your age. I thought politics were not good. I would go to altermondialist summits and consider that political people were corrupted. And then I was in Grenoble, and we made a big fight against the end of a park, the big park in the center of Grenoble that was partially replaced by a stadium, a football stadium, and we made a big fight on this. And then the Greens at that time were looking for people, and so they asked me to join them. And very quickly, because I was a woman and because I was young, I was put on a list. I was elected as a local councillor, and then at the time, being a woman, there was not that many women. You have much more today, but at the time it would make you go very fast.
The next question is, where do you picture yourself in 5 years?
I have no idea. I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. My life has never been planned, and I'm very lucky because it could have gone very wrong. But I've never really planned, so I have no idea. I know that I will go on fighting for European ideas and European values. That's for sure. I was already doing it before I was an MEP, because, as I said, I was in the executive board of the European Green Party. So all parties have a European party, the Labour Party, the SD party has one, EPP has one. We all have a European party, and I was in the board of that party, and we were helping our green parties to establish everywhere in the EU, and also trying to put everyone on a common base, make everyone find the same, believe in the same text and all this, so we would create same common policies for all of us. So I've been in European politics in general, in fact, much before I was an MEP, already 10 years before. So I will believe in Europe when probably others won't believe anymore in it. I'm quite a European believer, even if I criticize very much how EU is today built, but I still think that the day that we renounce to believe in a project where we can go further than our borders, and we come back to our national sovereignties only, I think we will have missed a great opportunity of changing the way we think the world. Obviously, the best ideal solution would be for the entire world to have the same rules and the same freedoms, but the first step would already be to manage it 27, 30, 35, so I will always hope that we manage to do something about EU. So in 5 years I will still be on that line, but where? Will it be here or in a civil society organization? I don't know.
If you can change one thing in the world or in Europe, what is it? So only one.
No, that's impossible. I don't know how to do that. And anyway, I don't think, I think things really function in that way. Things function a lot in an holistic way. What you see that in all countries, when you start forgetting about what the suffering of the most fragile in your societies, it can be the prisoners in prison, it can be the Rome minority, it can be, for example, Muslim women, which are often the ones that are the most fragile in our societies. If you don't address this, one day these same attacks will come to you. This is something that we've always seen in societies and in the world. And so I think that you don't tackle one problem or you don't defend one community. You just defend the rights for everyone, and you know that also social justice and environmental justice go together, but also social justice, environmental justice, and freedoms and civil rights. Where civil rights are attacked, we are going back also on social rights. I mean, Hungary today is a country where people are getting very, very poor, so we often talk only about the freedom problem and the authoritarian government, but in fact we also have a huge social problem. They are very, very poor. They cannot buy food anymore because there's such a huge inflation. And also it goes with environmental attacks, because these governments are also those that don't care about the future and the environment for everyone. So I don't think that you need to tackle all of it together.
I just have a question for you for the future. What is the most important things to change for the society or the world?
I think is to understand that we are, I mean, you would think that since thousands of years it's already the case, but to really understand that we have one planet for all of us, and one world, and if we just share it all together, it is possible, and it's possible for environmental reasons, for social benefits, for freedom. I think that for everything, the fact that we still accept that some people 1% of the population of the world can have 95% of what's on this planet, I think is one of the huge problems. And if we could come back to the idea that we have to share this, and it's not a scandal, or it's not shocking to ask people to share, we would make a big difference. Because today we have people that honestly believe, even people that are not in this 1%, and think that it is normal that we should be living in that way. I find it very bizarre that people are so easily convinced that it's normal that these people are not paying taxes or these people are not sharing their money. I find it very bizarre that we don't. And that it's immediately called ecology punitive, or it's immediately called authoritarian and all these decisions, when you are just saying to people, we just need to share things.
You are a woman MEP, so as you consider it's more difficult to be a woman MEP, or as you consider it's for you it's all simple to be a woman MEP to a man MEP, or not?
Is it more difficult to be a woman MEP than a man MEP? So first thing is, I come from a political family where gender equality is very important, and since a very long time. I always say, people don't always know that the Green parties were created, not the ones that are created today, but the ones that were created in the 70s were created in general from the same sort of organization. It was Friends of the Earth, an environmental organization, Pacific organization in general, and feminist organization. It's really, in most of the countries, the basis of the Green family. We have had rules that oblige for equality since always. So in France, it's not that much the case, but in most of the Green parties in EU, you have co-chairs, so a woman and a male all the time. We have the obligation of making quotas in our list, even when it's not in the rules of the countries and all this. So it's been easier for me than for others in other parties. I have never, I was a feminist very young, so that also helped, because I never considered that a man was superior to me, because that was how I was brought up, also by my father. I mean, it was not only my mother, so it also meant that I never felt in difficulties if I need to say to a man, just shut up, you need to listen to me now. So that's it. But still, so I wouldn't use the word difficult, but I want to be very clear on the fact that effective equality is not there. We have equality in theory, we don't have effective equality, and this is probably the huge thing today. In most of our EU countries, I mean, except for Poland and a few countries, but in most of our countries, and specifically in France, on the paper, we have theoretically equality. We don't yet have it effective, and that's where we need to progress, and we see that in data. So we need to put a lot of stress in data and work on where the power is. And for example, in this parliament, you have 42% of women, which is better than most of the parliament in EU. In national parliament, it's better than everywhere, in fact. So it's good, but when you then go to the files, you see that the women have the little files, and the files where you have a lot of money, for example, the CAP, the big agricultural funds, the big economic governance files, the big transport files and all this, they're all in the hands of the men. So in theory, we have equality, and then when you see where the rapporteurs that are on the big files, they're always men. So you see, we still need to progress.
Thank you! It was Gwendoline Delbos-Goldfield on the subject of Europe.
And now, last but not least, let's welcome Jan and Adrian for the Vox Pop.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, and you?
I am.
I'm fine as well.
How was today? Was it your first day in the parliament?
Yes, it was my first day in, and it was incredible because it's really giant, and we know we discover many new people, many politics and giant. I was first amazed by the architectural monuments. It was quite gigantic, yep, and amazing.
Gigantic, maybe?
I don't know. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, so it was my first day here as well. I was really impressed by the overall building. Yeah, it's pretty huge, and there are a lot of people in it. And I was glad that I could interview several of the members of parliament.
Yeah.
They were all very great and nice towards us, and I think that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Could you explain to us what the Vox Pop is?
In fact, Vox Pop is ask someone several questions, several quick questions to many people in the monuments and many different people. It can be people of the parliament or just press people or anyone that we met in the monument. Then we ask them several questions. Then, they answer it quite quick.
And did lots of people were able to answer to you?
Well, I would say there were more people that did not want to answer our questions rather than actually answering them because people were busy most of the time.
Yeah.
But we did encounter people that would actually answer the question, and when they did, they took their time and they told us some well-put arguments to answer each question.
And you want to speak to us about the questions, or we just listen to the Vox Pop that you did and we discover it?
I mean, the question were not very pointy. You know, there were questions that pretty much everyone could answer, whether that would be a member of parliament or people that were just working in a building, like maids, for instance. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything there is to say about the questions.
Okay, then we'll listen to that Vox Pop if you want.
Yep. Are you in favor of Ukraine joining the EU?
Yes, I am, but when it is ready. The European Commission has a really big bunch of experts who evaluate it, and everyone wants Ukraine in the EU, but they must first resolve their problems, for example, with endemic corruption.
Yeah, completely. Ukraine is the EU. That should have been done a long time ago. Okay. And we waited for a war to integrate them, but I think it's... Yeah,
that's since a long time ago.
Yeah, it should have been part of the EU.
I am. I don't think it will be easy process, and I don't think it will happen very soon. Mm-hmm. But I really hope that one day we can get to the place where we will be able to unite and create like even bigger European community.
Excuse me, would you like to answer some question for us? We are doing a little Vox Pop for the radio Quetch.
En français?
Je parle français aussi.
Oui, bien sûr. L'Ukraine, c'est terre d'Europe, les Balkans aussi, et donc ça peut être aussi une réponse à l'agression de la Russie.
I mean, there is a set of conditions to join the EU. So if Ukraine would join the EU, they need to respect the accession conditions. I mean, that would be the first, and not to be relieved of this obligation that other states who have been waiting for years are being asked to comply with. And it wouldn't be the case for Ukraine. So it should be equal footing for all.
Yes, I'm in favor, but of course the accession process is it takes time because you need to integrate all the package of European legislation. But I think that at certain moment it will be possible.
Yes, of course. Maybe not yet, but definitely yes.
Why?
Because Europe is stronger when people are together, economically and security-wise. And I come from Croatia, and people feel maybe, and you can feel a lot of discontent in Croatia regarding economic situation, but this is not due to European Union. Altogether, I think generally we feel much safer and happier.
Non. C'est un pays slave, il faut qu'il rejoigne une enceinte slave.
Alright. So my name is Yen, and I'm from Radio Quetch. I would like to ask you some questions. Are you in favor of Ukraine joining the EU, and why?
I would be, for sure. I think it'd be good to integrate them in the framework as soon as possible, and hopefully when the war is over with the Ukrainian victory, we can start fully accepting them as a member state. because it'd be better for the longevity of the union and also for Ukraine to rebuild?
Yes, because I think it will be it's a really key thing for us to protect countries which are close to a country like Russia, because Russia is an autocracy and it's maybe a danger for European Union. So the integration of Ukraine into the European Union is a good thing for democracy. Is a good thing for our economy. Is a good thing for our security. So it will be also a good solution. And besides, I'm mostly in favor of the expansion of the European project. So of course, joining.
I would say, and if I'm speaking on behalf of our group, we don't have a position on that. You'd have to ask the different delegations in the group.
Okay.
Long term, Ukraine needs to join the EU also to secure that continent against aggression from Russia, and so in long term, Ukraine belongs to the European Union, yes.
Thank you for this wonderful Vox Pop and all the great interview we had today.
And we'll welcome Miss Pi in the studio.
Thank you very much, guys.
Welcome, Miss.
Hello. And Luc from Radio Quetch as well.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Luc.
So, Isabelle Pi, do you want to introduce yourself in a few words?
All right, so I'm an English teacher at the lycée Louis Armand in Mulhouse. And I've been working there for 20 years. And I've been working with the students you heard today for 2 years. 3 for some of them, actually.
So how did it come to you, the idea to create this radio workshop with Radio Quetch?
Actually, it was quite simple. I bumped into Luc one day and we started talking about Radio Quetch and the fact it was an association. And I must say I'm really interested in associations. I think they're vital to our life as citizens. And then, one thing leading to another, we ended up speaking about projects that could be led with the school, with my high school. And we talked about media and then the European Parliament, thanks to, what is it called again? Wunderparlement.
Wunderparlement.
Oh, okay. That was the project you were doing in German.
Yeah.
And then when we talked about it, we thought, okay, why not do it in English? And since I had been working with those wonderful pupils for 2 years, and they were a small class, then we thought, okay, why not do it why not work with them and offer them that great opportunity of coming to the European Parliament.
And what's the conclusion of everything? Was it a good idea?
It was definitely a good idea. Guys, what do you think?
Oh, yes, I really agree with you, Miss.
Yeah, I would like to thank you and Radio Quetch for this opportunity. It was wonderful. Thank you.
And to me personally, I remember the first time I talked about Europe. I had a serious conversation. It was with my grandfather. Okay, so comes a bit personal here. But I remember him telling me about the war he had gone through and the fact that we really had to believe in Europe and do everything we could do in order for it to work so that all of us could live peacefully. Because I believe that sometimes we tend to forget how lucky we are to live in France, to live in Europe, to be protected. And, So to me, being here is not just like a school outing. Being here means believing in a kind of ideal, in a world we can all live in together. We all belong in here. I mean, we are French citizens, fine, but we are also European citizens of the world. And symbolically, it's really important for me to be here with you guys, with my students.
Thanks a lot to Louis Armand Broadcast Company because I learn English. I have a little bit progress with this project. And thanks a lot Louis Armand Broadcast Company, thanks a lot Miss Pi, and Bertrand, Jean-Luc, Erwan, Ninon, Mathilde, Salomé.
So thank you, Radio Quetch, and all of you guys for everything you did for us in order to make this day come true. I know it was a lot of work, getting coming to our class and preparing all the lessons in English. I really appreciated it, Mathilde. Thanks a lot. And thank you for all the time and energy you put into this. It was definitely worth it.
It is already the end of our show, which was in the Parliament in this time.
Thanks to everyone who has been listening to a Louis Armand broadcast.
Wunderparlement.
Bye.
Yes, do you have my voice?
Wunderparlement.
Apprendre à faire de la radio.
Il presidente.
Ucz się radia.
Aprende a hacer radio.
Leer radio maken.
Chaque mois au Parlement européen à Strasbourg.
En el Parlamento Europeo de Estrasburgo.
W Parlamencie Europejskim w Strasburgu. Czekamy na Ciebie.
In Straatsburg.
Toi aussi, tu peux venir.